It's good to see you, Jens. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
So we keep hearing about the possibility of Christine Lagarde. European heavyweights, eurozone leaders have thrown their support behind her. But you have spoken about the benefits of having a central banker in this role. Why is that?
Well, I don't think it's just because I am myself an old central banker, but I think what the last three managing directors at the fund have demonstrated are both the benefit and, if you want, the cost of having a political figure. Strauss-Kahn has been tremendously successful, but he hasn't sat out his term, and that was the same story for Rodrigo Rato and Horst Köhler before that. You get these political figures, they can play a big role in the political running of the fund, but they also have ambitions and often eyes elsewhere. So I think the executive board, if they could get their way, they would certainly insist on having someone who's able and willing to focus on the fund and for the next 5 years.
And how difficult will it be for them to get their way? I mean, you're familiar with the inner workings, the sort of mechanics of a process like this. How smooth is the transition going to be? You say yourself Strauss-Kahn has done tremendously well. How difficult is it going to be to fill his shoes as such?
I think politically it will be very difficult to fill his shoes. As a managing director, a very capable managing director. I don't think that the board will have much of a say in this. This is a political decision that takes place, as your report just highlighted, between mostly at the moment between the US and Europe, and whether the old status quo where the US holds the World Bank and the Europeans get to fill the IMF slot. If that still holds, then this can be settled quite quickly. The board, I think, is important, though, because the board will express the attitude not just of those political players, but also the rest of the membership. The IMF is not just a European institution focused on the European crisis. Of course, Christine Lagarde will be eminently well positioned to deal with that and with a whole host of other issues. But there are certainly also other challenges for the fund here, not just in terms of running and keeping the staff happy and motivated, beavering away, but there's also there's African issues, there's Latin American issues, and so on. The IMF is a global institution, it's not just a European institution.
So with that in mind, do you envisage a future where the IMF has perhaps, do you think they will have exactly the same level of involvement as we have seen under Strauss-Kahn going forward when it comes to eurozone negotiations? I
think at this point the IMF will have to be there because the eurozone needs that external umpire, if you want, and also the external capacity to handle a crisis. That simply doesn't, that technical expertise simply doesn't exist in Europe at the moment. So the IMF is absolutely crucial in that, and it also provides the political impetus, I think, to push some of these programs through. And the IMF will be crucial here, and the managing director needs to play a role in that, no doubt about that.
So essentially you're saying there'll be no change in the strategic direction of the organisation, no matter who takes the helm?
Well, I think the strategic focus of the IMF has certainly been shifted by the crisis, but the IMF has long focused on the global issues. So it's not just about the sovereign crisis in Europe, it's certainly also about these global imbalances, the monetary system we have in place, where the fixed exchange rate of Asia, the growth strategy is pursued there. And I said the IMF has a key role here, and sure, I'm a European economist, so I'm very focused on the European crisis. But there are other really big issues out there that the IMF needs to support on too.
But equally important issues right here in Europe. I mean, the EU President Herman Van Rompuy has urged a quick decision. I mean, he has said that we are really feeling a lack of leadership. And this comes at a time where, as well, we're starting to see ruptures in Europe between the ECB and eurozone governments, the ECB warning that they might stop funding Greek banks in the event of a restructuring. I mean, we're seeing divisions becoming more and more entrenched, aren't we?
Certainly the divisions are very stark at this point in time, and Dominic Strauss-Kahn and the IMF have played a role in trying to mend those relationships. But I would say, looking ahead, Europeans really need to work that one out between them. The fund can't sort out the tensions between the ECB and the Ministry of Finance. Sure, the fund has a role there, but that's there's really for the Ministries of Finance and the ECB to work that one out. What
is the ECB trying to do what are they trying to get the politicians to do in making these comments?
Well, I think at the highest level, the ECB are basically concerned that the politicians are about to unleash something that they don't understand, which is the implications of a sovereign restructuring, a reprofiling, or soft bailout, a soft restructuring, and all that. That will have a bigger implications that the politicians appreciate. Not just for the ECB, concern about ECB losses, not just for Greece and Greek debt holders, but this is going to shift. This is going to This is going to spread across Europe and have much wider implications. And it's basically, I think it's the concern that we're about to unleash unwillingly something that is much more powerful than the politicians appreciate and will be able to handle. I think that's the concern. And basically the response to that is to stay as far back from that as you can, and insist on no restructuring, no reprofiling at this point in time.
Jens Larsen, very much enjoyed your analysis. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.